right, now we're going to talk about belt drive cooling. There's a huge amount of cooling on this machine because it has very high horsepower engine and a very big CVT with a big rubber band in there that generates a lot of heat. You have to take that heat away. The only way to do that is with air. So you have these two giant pipes that cool the belt and the CVT system. Nice reminder there, drive clutch retaining bolt is left-hand thread. Always make sure to know that if you're gonna work on your clutch. Okay, so there's all these couplers like here, 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 and Polaris puts them on real goofy, right? I mean, look how crooked that band is. It's sticking off here. I mean, this just looks like crap. So you gotta take your time and go around and get all these couplers sitting happily, and then add a few zip ties to secure everything so it doesn't bounce around like this. Yes, when you have the floorboard on, it helps hold it, but you don't wanna rely on just that. So yeah, this pipe right here is crazy. It's got some crazy bends in it. It comes up here and it goes up behind the radiator and around. This pipe right here is this pipe right here. That is your belt intake. So it's got quite a long flow path. Your belt exhaust also has a really long flow path. Comes all the way around here. Yeah, you have to make sure that you're not gonna hit this with the tire up here or back here. It's just plastic, so if you crack that or you hit it and it pulls loose, you're gonna get water in your belt. These are pretty good clutches. I had good luck with the clutches on mine. Never had to do any clutch tuning. Just had to service mine when I got them, but they're pretty good. Your belt drain is that red bolt down there. Had to do that on a Polaris literally yesterday. Hopefully you won't have to do that very often with the risers we're gonna put. But those fancy clamps I bought are really good for fitting on this perfectly and bringing them up. Because as you can see, this isn't the most, I don't know, say high quality, but it's kind of thin, floppy pipe. So you got to make sure you have exactly the right size to go on there, or you're not going to get a good seal because you can't put a whole lot of clamping pressure on it. I'm going to peel off this kind of stuff, and hopefully we can get a good seal on this without having to use any RTV. I was able to do that on mine, and you don't want to use RTV here because you want to be able to take this on and off if you need to swap back to your factory risers. You want to make it easy to work on, easily serviceable. But yeah, that's the belt snorkels. Not a whole lot more to say about them. Mine were pretty trouble-free, except for this guy right here. Of course, engine intake is actually pretty simple. It just goes from here to here. It gets pretty flat here, but the hole in the airbox is small, so it's plenty high flow. This belt exhaust elbow right here, coming onto the top of the belt box, used to be very problematic. However, if you look down here, you don't have all that much lip to bite on. So I think it's gonna be fine as long as it's all the way on there and you keep good torque on that. Don't over tighten it, it's just plastic. But as long as that's tight, I think it's gonna be okay. If you do start having water in your belt issues, first thing I would do is pull this off, put some ultra black around both surfaces, let it get tacky, stick it on there, torque it down, and then that should be good to go. On mine, I actually had to put a zip tie around here and then through the clamp to hold the clamp on because it kept wanting to slide off after my belt box got hot a couple times and started to kind of weaken. This would pop off. I think you're gonna be fine. This is a brand new machine. It looks like it might have some improvements there, but keep an eye on this one for sure. Okay, so these couplers in your belt snorkels are kind of interesting. They actually slide into each other, and then you have the rubber boot that goes around the outside of them. It's a kind of a thin, flimsy boot. I don't remember mine being like that. I feel like that's an update. What's concerning me about this guy, if I can hold the phone right, is it doesn't fit together very well. So the bottom is in tight, but the top's got a pretty big gap. That's a little goofy. Once it's out of warranty, obviously you could silicone this and silicone this and stick them together for a better seal. But this one right here is your belt intake. And this is pretty low down by the wheel well. And there's a big gap back here, but this is tight. So that fitment is a little bit concerning. I'm gonna play with it and see if I can get it better. But that's one piece of pipe from that junction to this junction. So you really don't have a whole lot to play with. But like I said, at least this boot goes around it. So it should be watertight. It's just not super supportive to this pipe, which isn't really mounted a whole lot of places. I mean, it moves around a lot. So I'm trying to optimize that. All right, so I'm starting to work on the extended risers. First thing you gotta do is check all the piping. So I took most of the snorkels apart, refit everything and tightened it. aligned everything better. Polaris kind of did a shitty job of aligning the boots. It was okay, it was probably waterproof, but they could have loosened up eventually. I put a big zip tie here to secure this because it was bouncing around. It also gives you a little more clearance with your tire. Look how close the tire gets to that snorkel. Okay, then coming up here, retorqued these, got them nice and tight. Took this apart and retorqued them. You can see where Polaris had the boot bands. The boot bands were not on there straight at all, and it was pretty goofy. Same thing with this one right here. I redid all those and got them fitting pretty decent. I don't really love how these junctions are made, but they're on there as good as they can be now. And then I got everything back up to here. Put the boots on with the nice black hose clamps. And then I got two big zip ties holding these two together and then holding these two together. You want them to touch in the center, that way they're stabilizing each other. Once you put the cowl on, that guy, they're gonna sit in here, and that's also gonna stabilize them. If you put the hose clamps the way I have them here, this one this way, and these over here, it kind of all helps to hold them aligned. That way when you put the risers up, everything looks uniform. But they're mounted a lot better than they were from the factory as far as flopping around and stuff. So I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's gonna be 100% waterproof. I just gotta put it together now and go test it. Here's how it looks with my 3-inch to 2.5-inch couplers installed. You can see that this is really providing a lot of stability once you put this shroud on. It's touching there, it's up against the hose clamp there. This hose clamp sits up against this big surface, and it really does a lot to stabilize the riser. Same thing over here, it's touching here. So with them zip tied to each other and this on there, it's very solid. You can shake the whole bike by those risers. That's how I did it on my old one. I think it's a great way to do it. Check out my old video if you want more details. Initial waterproofing on this brand new Highlifter 1000 is complete. I went through and verified that every vent line was hooked up appropriately. Then we put some snorkel risers on here. Snorkels used to be down here. Now they're way up here where you can vent. You can keep an eye on them. They're nice and lean forward, so you're not gonna get hit in the face or get your shirt sucked into them on a water wheelie. And very watertight with these Spectrum custom fit boots here. And then I also went ahead and cranked the preload on all 4 shocks. This thing had not enough up travel, so just driving it around, I could feel it bottoming out. That gets it sitting up a little higher, which gives you some more water fording capability, obviously, and also might improve the ride. These shocks on the Highlifter's are very limited. I have a set of XP shocks coming for this machine, and that's going to increase the suspension travel by 60-70% just by throwing those shocks on.